Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
That's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
Hi, welcome to the Political Dice.
Empichi ebyobufuzi.
It's controversial,
Purely political,
well researched,
accurate and global.
Oyagala bya parliament oba council.
Yes, State House oba ghetto.
Ani ayugayuga ku ground.
Ani gwe baabuze.
Okimanyi nga Dr. Kiza Besigye aleese amaanyi.
Olwo fadda bafutsoli abateeseemu obuvaazi.
Oba yo DP eri kuki?
Olwo jeema.
Bano ba MKCG bo baddawa.
Abo bafuna CDF baamala tebabanja. Olwo baba ate bange bali kuki?
Abo bo akina kulabisa simanyanga posturing tebabiri mbali mu structure building. Naye ate ono ye.
Ani oyo oba?
Yali kuki?
Oyo kyomuleketa gampanyiga mawu.
Ebe ndabena birindira nokuda Political Dice ku the Alternative Digital nange teditenja ewamune.
Karoida bikobere
Buli wa Sunday
sawa 2.
At first, we hit your gadgets with our state-of-the-art digitalized mobile studio with the debate on the road behind the wheels. Later, we launched our magnificent studios located on Plot 1A, Sewagude Close, Lukulinanganda, Machindye, Kampala, where we bring to you our must-watch shows like The Mighty Drive, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m., Hotline, Mondays, 7 p.m. As for legal matters, Twins at Bar, Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Wednesdays, 6 p.m. is Afro-Caribbean Link, where we connect Africa with the Caribbean. Voltage on Thursdays, 7 p.m., featuring a youthful panel. Interface with Dr. Kiza Besigye every Friday, 12 p.m. with his call to action against injustices. Snap Talk, Saturdays, 6 p.m. with the trio. A must-watch, The Political Dice, Sundays, 8 p.m. with the duo that never stammers, and so much more. Watch us live on all our social media platforms. We are the Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Good evening, Uganda. Welcome to this edition of the Hotline Show. My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga. We are coming to the end of this particular month of July, as it's the 29th day of July 2024. So we are gearing up into entering the last quarter of this particular year, and I hope that some of the goals that you set for yourself, for your organization, your entity, there are some indicators that should be showing your progress as we speak right about now. So I request you to go back to those KPIs and just look at them. Where are you? And try to see if you have moved this far in the first 7 months of the year. What do you do in the next 5 months of this particular year? So thank you so much for tuning in, and always coming through every particular Monday starting from 7 to 9 p.m. It's always a privilege that you guys get to watch us here. We acknowledge how much you invest in watching such a show, investing your time, also investing your resources such as data, which is very expensive in this part of the world. So we thank you so much. And also, I would like to thank our global audience, the people who watch us in diaspora. You are one of the people that we value the most. Thank you so much, the people who are watching us from the Middle East. I have a lady called Mrs. Kakule Martha. Thank you so much for watching from Dubai. I have Kamoga Franklin from San Francisco. Thank you so much for watching. And all of you, to mention but a few, thank you so much for investing time to watch this particular show. Every particular Monday from 7 to 9 p.m. I'm always joined by a couple of gentlemen here to try to have a conversation that is about Uganda. But we're not just casting stone or ridiculing the country, no. We're trying to foster conversations that are going to create a better Uganda, that are going to mold a future that is going to be healthy for me, for you, and the people who I have in studios. And of course, every Monday, I told you I have Joseph Ochieno from the Uganda People's Congress, and of course, Charles Kazooba. He is the Executive Director for the Center for African Affairs and Diplomatic Studies. You can call it CAADS. We are always joined by the NRM Director, External Affairs, that is Honorable Retired Major Paula, which he's not here today because of some inconveniences, but we shall be having a conversation with these two gentlemen in order to touch base on how Uganda is looking like. But before I invite them, allow me just peruse you through some of the news stories that have been going around on social media, even in the news platform. We have a group of FDC cadres who had gone, I think, to Kisumu, that is in Kenya recently. They were arrested by the Kenyan police and deported back to Uganda. As we speak today, they were arraigned in court and were charged with terrorism, with treason. And they say that these particular individuals were taking part in terrorist activities or trainings back in Kenya. So they have actually remanded them to prison, and they'll be appearing again in court. That is on the 14th of August, 2024. Many of the cadres of FDC, especially the people who were there at court, say that this is a political move. They say there is no evidence that can back up the claims that the government is making. But this is for the court to actually confirm or deny. But as we speak, 36 of these cadres are actually behind bars. And of course, police has also continued to say that there are many of the other comrades who are actually at large. There are many people who are part of this particular group, that they are at large as we speak right about now. Then in other news, we have Theodore Sechekubo. He's a member of parliament who has been on a quest for getting signatures of people who are censoring, of members of parliament who are going to be censoring or who are working on censoring the 4 commissioners of parliament who they say illegally awarded themselves 1.7 billion as a reward for the job well done. Now, Theodore Sechekubo has been in this particular campaign of looking for people to sign this petition that is going to oust these people from their positions. As we speak today, he has got the number of people or of members needed to start the process of tabling this particular petition on the floor of Parliament. So right now he has the moral authority and legal authority to actually table this particular petition in the House. And after that, the House will see it fit if they can actually, oust these people from their positions or relieve them from their duties as commissioners of Parliament, or they may uphold what they think is the right thing to do. Then maybe lastly, but definitely not least, is Speaker Anita Among, who came out yesterday at an event and said that she will be serving her 2 terms as Speaker of Parliament of Uganda. She says that she has only served 1 term. She's going to be bouncing back to serve Ugandans for yet another term. This comes at a time when many Ugandans, especially the young people, have been on the streets trying to protest these particular corruption activities that are in Parliament. And they were saying, well, the main demand was that Anita Among should resign. Now, what does this mean? When someone who is at the center of controversy is backing back to the people and saying she is not going to resign in any way, even if you want her to resign, she does not believe that she is corrupt, as you assert, and because of this particular reason, she's going to come back and she will serve Parliament another term. Now, Speaker Anita Among has also been at the controversies of being a woman who's dishing out a lot of resources. Many people are looking at her track record, awarding the cancer run over $1 billion shillings. That's around 250,000 US dollars. Then on burying with 100 million, and that is condolence. And many people are asking themselves, if the president can award condolence of 10 million and the speaker awards 100 million, what is this statement, especially when it comes in hierarchy? And of course, we have seen the controversies that were revealed by the Parliament exhibition that happened on social media, especially on X or Twitter. We saw money that was being wired on the accounts of the Speaker of Parliament's bodyguard, the driver. We saw some of the colleagues, I think like Chris Obore. Is Chris Obore a colleague? I don't think so. He works at Parliament. A lot of money that has been actually put and wired on these people's account. And this was really something that many Ugandans were saying, where does the Speaker get all this money? Even up to today, that's the conversation that Ugandans are having. And we're also going to also talk about these particular issues. And of course, as I told you, we do not have these conversations to just ridicule or hate people or scorn at them, but we're actually trying to create alternative solutions to a better Uganda. So, and we're not here because we are the smartest of them all, but it's always a privilege for us to be here before you. It's just an opportunity that we have to share. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, welcome the panelists for the day. I'll start with Charles Kazooba. I told you he's the Executive Director for the Center for African Affairs and Diplomatic Studies. It's always a privilege to have you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Karuhanga, and Digitalk for the invitation.
Yes,
indeed, I'm quite honored to always be here every Monday evening. This Saturday.
Yesterday but one?
Yes. I was in Namutamba, Mitiana district.
Yes, sir.
We have started our research as Center for African Affairs, research into persistent allegations of persecution
Yes, sir.
of the Banyarwanda community in Uganda. They are denied passports, they are denied national IDs.
That's very true.
Some of them are even losing their property, and yet they are Ugandans by their accounts. So Saturday there was some kind of Banyarwanda crusade in Namutamba, organized by an organization called the Movano, to reawaken the Banyarwanda in Uganda and inform them of what is happening. Because apparently, although the Banyarwanda are stated as a tribe,
Yeah.
in the constitution, the same constitution technically knocks them out.
How so?
They say they should have been here by
Yes. 1926.
1926.
Yes.
But the independence constitution, which was presided over by UPC, accommodated everybody who was in Uganda as at independence.
As at independence, that is 1962.
Yes. So I found out that actually there are Banyarwanda who were here even before 1900.
Oh.
But because immigration insists that they should prove that their ancestors were here before 1900, it is difficult to come across such proof. Now it becomes a problem. Immigration demands that you come with your grandfathers, great-grandfathers. Most of these people have died.
Yes.
So they have been declared literally stateless. They are not Rwandans, they are not Ugandans. And that is the conversation that has been going on.
Okay.
Honorable Fred Mukasambide has already come up with a draft proposal that can become a bill to be tabled in Parliament.
Okay, Kazooba, I want you to stop there because that's where I wanted to come to, because this Banyarwanda question has been here for a long time.
Yes.
I have a person that I studied with. She's been born in Uganda, raised in Uganda. Even up to they have failed to get their passport because of that particular issue.
Yes.
And I want us to devise solutions, and you're going to just give us a glimpse on what was in that particular bill that is going to be tabled. But before we do that, let me welcome a gentleman from Uganda People's Congress. You're welcome, Mr. Ochieno. It's always a privilege to have you, sir.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to be here. It saddens me to hear stories of African citizens having challenges on the continent of Africa, like Thabo Mbeki. I am an African.
Yes, sir.
Like few, not so many, because there are not many who took the route that I did. I'm one of the few Africans who refused the privileges of having non-African citizenships.
You don't even have a UK passport?
And I did that deliberately.
Yes, sir.
I did it as a matter of principle, but it's also one of the drives why I am absolutely thoroughly determined that African citizens should have the matters of identities resolved in Africa. And so therefore, number two, that it saddens me that in my own Uganda, people continue to use identity for politics. In fact, not for political reasons. And people use African lives to push for their dubious political agenda.
How so, sir?
And that in this very particular case, as Charles refers, it's absolutely true that UPC at independence, we came up with a rather comprehensive, the most ambitious constitution looking at the question of African identity and personality anywhere on the continent. It is also the case that while doing that, we were so generous that we were able to consider non-Africans as human with the basic rights, human rights. So therefore include very easily Bazungu, and this is something that we discussed, Bazungu who met criteria for Ugandan citizenship, and we did. That was not particularly common across the continent. So did we with the Bayindi Asians, to the extent that part of the arrival of Idi Amin is an introductory thing, but maybe a subject we should come back to, was the cause of conflicts between Britain and Uganda government, that people, in a very sometimes rather unfortunate way, I was going to say silly in quotes, think is a UPC or Bota thing.
Yes,
you know? No. Towards the mid part of our independence, mid-60s, the unresolved questions of the Asians in Uganda was in part where the British literally wanted to dump, I'm not contradicting myself, dump all the Asians who were in Uganda. We had already gone ahead and said, look, we have and recognize Asian citizens who qualify to be Ugandans. But if they're Asians who qualify to be British citizens, those should be British responsibility. And if the Asians who are actually Indians, they should be Indian citizens. And we should be able to resolve this. We're a new independent nation. Let's talk as equals.
Yes.
Britain, India, and Uganda, you know. But we also said that there are particular categories of people who would be in some of these difficult situations. We welcomed them to apply for Ugandan citizenship. Okay?
Yes.
And when you apply for Ugandan citizenship, all we asked, and all I ask today, is that if you become a Ugandan citizen, for heaven's sake, behave like a Ugandan, follow the laws and rules of Uganda and the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, and be in Uganda like every other Ugandan. And you should not be a special human being in this country.
Yes, you're just an equal to everybody else.
Absolutely. And that's all we all did. Fast forward to Mini today.
Yes, sir.
In the early 80s, Museveni piles himself with a bunch of dubious people, go to the bush, ironically uses and exploits Banyarwanda, who were predominantly in this country and with the cover and protection and privilege granted by Uganda People's Congress.
Yes.
To fight Uganda People's Congress government.
That's true.
Okay? Unleashing refugees from camps and other Banyarwanda-related people. And people died the scars of Luwero, Mr. Museveni. Now, while I have been seeking to resolve in my own heart and harm, and with Ugandans that we should reconcile as a people, including with the Banyarwanda, including the likes of the Kagames, that we should look ahead, these things happen. Shockingly now, Banyarwanda Ugandan citizens, face these things under NRA. What hypocrisy and what contradiction and what irony.
Because they and the NRM actually fought together.
Did you get it? Do you get it?
Yes.
And so for that, it's now time for us to say, we told you so. But Africans, what's wrong with us? So next time Ochieno is talking to you guys, take some of us seriously. So it's actually genuinely very sad. So in other words, instead of me exploiting this in that way, it saddens me. Because you're right, Charles, I've raised this thing on this television network, and I've raised it globally, including on other major national networks. One time I was coming from northern Uganda, and I found this young, pretty girl serving at a petrol station. And as usual, because I was taking a little bit of a longer break with my driver, and I think they went to take coffee. So I started talking to them. My usual thing with the young Ugandans, young Africans, as you guys know, is to say, what do you do? What are you doing? Are you studying? How much did you earn here? How's your job conditions? Those usual things. Turns out this poor girl, a Ugandan citizen, commonsensically Ugandan citizen, has no passport, was struggling. And she told me some of those stories. And I actually genuinely got shocked. Yes. So I actually committed myself to raising this thing. And indeed, I raised it on the national television. Of course, I don't have access to national parliament, which is now occupied by NRA. But these are things of national import. We need to deal with it. So urgently, this is the point. We need to deal with the Banyarwanda question. We need to deal with the African identity question with the people from West Nile, where the Musevenis came in and abused this other thing, uno uyo mucholi, and uno uyo mwanyanya, and things like that. We need to deal with these things. And then ironically, Museveni, who represents, allegedly claims to be a revolutionary Pan-Africanist, it's a contradiction. So we need to deal with these things. Where, of course, there's clearly an issue is, as I said, we're going to discuss the Kenyan thing. If you're a Ugandan citizen, or if you're a Ugandan resident, for me who's a UK resident, when I'm in UK, I operate and function within the laws and the constitutional provision of the country.
UK, yeah.
And that's all. So really, it will be surprising to people coming from me, because many Ugandans, not UPC, many Ugandans actually felt quite resentful about the manner in which Museveni manipulated the identity thing, the Banyarwanda/Bantu thing, to push his agenda. It is wrong that at this time, the citizens of this country, as Charles says, maybe people who were here before my grandfather, before my father was born, they've gone through the process and they're struggling and suffering in
silence.
they
cannot even find the evidence.
And the reason is, though, the reason why I'm going on with this, because sometimes people don't know. We don't know what happens over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
We don't know which war or conflict emerges tomorrow. I don't want another conflict in this country, Banyarwanda versus Banyankole, perhaps, by Teso versus Banyarwanda. That's why I'm trying to say that the national issues, when we discuss it, we should need to be able to discuss them carefully. But it's a shame that Mr. Museveni is presiding over this kind of unfortunate
We're going
thing.
to devise alternatives or solutions to this particular issue, but let me start with you, Charles. So, in your meeting that you had, what are some of the solutions that you came up with to address the Banyarwanda question?
First of all, the law as it is,
Yes, sir.
it is true that most Banyarwanda cannot access travel documents. They can't also benefit from government services. There is one lady actually that I interviewed. She has applied twice for the parish development model. They are a group of five. But both times she has not been given money. The rest get. For her, she doesn't.
It goes down to even to that level.
They don't tell her the reason.
Mm.
So after the second time,
Yes, sir.
they told her, go and check with the bank. Maybe the issue is with the bank. You understand? There is another guy I interviewed. He applied to join UPDF, and they technically knocked him out because of the name. So it is a silent policy
Yes.
that leads to persecution of Ugandans, a section of Ugandans.
Have you also noticed that these Ugandans that you're saying are persecuted actually have Ugandan national IDs?
Now, those with the national IDs, if you're not aware, should such a person cross path with any security agent or security organization,
Yes, sir.
they will withdraw and they will confiscate the national ID from that person. So most of them have lost their national IDs.
Because I know them to have IDs.
Yes.
But then how would they have got the IDs in the first instance?
That's what I was even asking indirectly. Because how can I have a national ID and you cannot give me a passport because I'm not a Ugandan citizen?
Now, like he has told you, there are lots of internal contradictions within President Museveni's government. Because these people that are being persecuted, most of them have never even crossed Mbarara. They don't even know how Kawale looks like. But they are being accused of being aliens, foreign people who have come here. The government has failed to differentiate between a Rwandan and a Munyarwanda. There is a huge difference between a Munyarwanda, who is actually a Ugandan, and a Rwandan citizen. This is not unique to Uganda alone. Kenya, there are Somalis who are Kenyan citizens.
Yes.
But there are also Somalis who are foreigners. They can visit Kenya and go back. How come Kenya has no problem of the sort? That they can differentiate.
So how do we address this issue, Charles?
Now, like I told you, Mbide has come up with what he thinks is a permanent solution. A solution that takes us back to the 1962 independence constitution. You know, legally, Uganda is established at Independence Day.
Yes.
Legally.
That's what we can say.
So when you talk of 1926, the legal Uganda didn't exist.
I think they're based on a census that was made around that time.
No, but the legal Uganda did not exist then.
Yes, yes.
So if we are to go by the law, you have to talk of 1962. So Bide's proposal is to amend Article 10 of the 1995 Constitution. But I should also, for the benefit of the viewers, to understand why the Constitution of 95 changed the situation, the status of the Banyarwanda. Actually, UPC under Bote behaved more Pan-Africanist. Reason being, Banyarwanda, because most of them were Catholics, would vote for DP, even at independence. Eh? So they never voted for Obote, even in 1980. You understand? But Obote decided to accommodate them in the constitution as indigenous citizens.
Yes, sir.
Now, for President Museveni, I don't know what happened, but what we are getting, the information I've been getting is that there is a group of overzealous NRI/NRM cadres who, having felt that there would be a succession queue, and in that succession queue, you would have a Rwigema, you would have a Kagame, and others.
Yeah.
So they invented a provision that would technically kick them out. So that is the genesis of the problem. The problem was political.
Okay, I'm trying to understand what you're saying, but the problem of the Banyarwanda has happened in the recent past, starting with the era of the Kaihuras around that time. That's when we've been hearing it.
Let me tell you, this issue has been debated as far back as 2000. There have been even shuttle meetings between the Banyarwanda leaders and the president's office for so many years. In fact, after some time, the president directed that they establish a Banyarwanda desk within the immigration department, which would now sieve out the foreigners from the indigenous.
The indigenous community.
Yes, but that was abused. He even appointed, I think, somebody who would oversee their issues. Generally, there was no fundamental solution. Now, Mbide is proposing that they amend Article 10 of the 1995 Constitution, so that Banyarwanda are treated as indigenous Ugandans, so that they are entitled to national IDs, just like any other Ugandan.
But one would say it's already done, as you have mentioned, in the Banyarwanda
I'm telling
as a
you,
tribe.
those IDs are being confiscated by authorities.
No, I'm trying to say that whereas he is bringing a very good solution,
Yes.
it's actually practical in the Constitution, because these people are already in the Constitution as Banyarwanda.
Maybe you didn't hear me well.
Yes, sir.
I told you the community called Banyarwanda is just stated as a tribe amongst all others.
Yes.
But when you go to the law technically kicks them out. And that is why Mbide is coming up with a proposed amendment. He's not a member of parliament, but he has drafted a proposal to amend this law. And I think he has also interacted with the president. And the president appears not to have issues yet. You know, the president.
I remember the
is
president
never
meeting by Van Diemen with Frank Gashumba recently, I think.
And for the issue of the Gashumbas, I really wouldn't want to go into that.
So it's not the same?
Because it is another dynamic that has political connotations. Sponsored by the state, by the way. But I don't want to go into that.
But how can we speak about the Banyarwanda without talking about the Van Diemen?
You ask yourself, is there any nation that would ever want to change its name in the whole world? Can Banyankole become something else just because somebody has proposed a name?
What is Frank Gashumba trying to achieve that we're not seeing?
That's why I'm telling you, I don't want to go into that. But you should understand that that is a destruction that is sponsored by the state, by the way. And I'm speaking because I know that as a fact. The real issue is people are suffering all over the country. They cannot, for instance, procure land. You imagine, there's an old man in 50s that I interviewed. This man has he told me they refused to give him his national ID. By the time he was born, he didn't know that he would be harassed. You understand? He has grown up in Namutamba, he has worked there, but it is very unfortunate that, for instance, every time he wants to do something legal, they ask for a national ID, but he has no national ID, and he cannot get it. The man has never crossed the border. He told him he even doesn't know, he has never reached Masaka. You understand?
Yes.
He has never had any relatives in Rwanda. All his people were here.
Yes, sir.
You understand?
I'm listening.
Now, even the UN provides for such a scenario. But like he has told you, it is very unfortunate that NRM, that prides itself being Pan-African, should be the government that should harass its own citizens.
The ones that ironically helped
it is terrible.
Okay.
It is terrible, really.
No problem. People are already starting to ask, wanting you to explain the issue of Frank Kazooba. But I'll be reading your messages subsequently. Let me first listen in from him as we continue. Sir, what do you think can solve this impasse, this issue? Because I'm telling you, I know a child, I think I'm like 17 or making 18. They have been born here, and they cannot be given a passport saying they are not Ugandans. And this person is really what you may call, okay, Ugandan. Maybe have Rwandan decency, okay, Ugandan.
I don't know, because I don't know how much of this topic we can go on to looking at time. Maybe if you want us to have a conversation of this topic, we give it a fair 2 hours, and we do so with someone from NRA in here. The NRA guys who basically used these people as tools, just as they used children illegally in Luwero. You know, I think the Kagame-Rugema axis is an axis. The question of Kazooba is sort of real. I suspect one of the other elements linked to that is the fact that Rwanda and Kagame, you know, with Mr. Museveni, when they went onto the looting expedition in Congo, the empire building in Congo, Rwanda beat and humiliated Museveni and his people. Because and remember, I just want to say it for the record, Museveni and Kagame did not do it in my name. They did not go to Congo in my name. And whatever they did, including the lootings in Congo, they did not do it in my name. And that's a slightly different topic. From that Congo thing until today, the relationship between Museveni and Kagame, who are supposed to be brethren in many ways, including entire school OBs, you know, these things. So basically, unfortunately, that's actually what I'm trying to say that way. Playing the African personality and name and identity for your selfish interest is really, really brutal. And I hope my Jesus can deal with it as I leave it in that way. You know? So no, it's basically purely part of that. In any case, you know, and I thought I would leave this for Charles, that one of the other issues is that it's alleged Paul Kagame has got cells, you know, in Uganda, you know, and those cells would possibly almost certainly be cells of people who are not particularly very, you know, very, very loyal to Museveni. Just as Kagame alleges that Museveni has cells in Rwanda. You realize I'm talking Kagame versus Museveni because these are really things which are not. These are no, but yes, but I'm not. I'm saying very deliberately. These are not Ugandan citizens' thing versus Rwandese people's thing.
It's just Museveni and Kagame.
Whatever the case, and these are not in my names. You know what I'm saying? And not my children's names. And not my children.
Disclaimer.
Absolutely, and it's very, very important. So part of the thing is that yes, under the NRA security of systems, yes, you know, the Banyarwanda are looked at suspiciously, you know. So there is an element of that. And then, so who would be much more suspicious
about Banyarwanda, if you look at it from that point of view, than possibly those of us in UPC, you know, who Museveni organized Banyarwanda to fight against as a government, as a people, kind of stuff. But we're simply saying no. You get the point I'm trying to make?
Yes.
That's a simple matter we can actually discuss. Now, it's also true, apparently, that in the early 80s, over conflict of land and water, you know, particularly, ironically in Ankole, the only place where there's an issue of conflict between Banyarwanda, you know, Banyarwanda pastoralists, you know, and Ugandan citizen pastoralists over land and water, almost the Karamojong thing, was in Ankole, you know. We never knew, it never happened anywhere else in Uganda, you know. And so by the time Museveni was doing those things and pulling these other people and trying to fake them, put fire into them, that Ugandans hate you, the Bote government hates you, things like that, he was using them for his political gains. And as I said, it is actually genuinely unfair. One other thing I've said about this thing, by the way, is that in future, if I met Paul Kagame, one of the things I would tell him, my only big difference with him would be to say, like, Paul, just tell the world that, look, you guys were in Uganda, you wanted to return, you applied to return, and you got an opportunity to return. And you returned to Rwanda, you know, because it was your object, your primary object, and you planned and schemed it. I don't want to go into some of the details. So you did. Please, do not say that you left Uganda because that's the narrative they successfully built, that the Ugandans did not like us, and particularly the Obotes were fighting us. That's why we joined Museveni on to these things and build a foundation. So you can see there's so many issues around these things. Now, I'm trying to go beyond all those ones to simply say that, no, whatever is happening at this material time, just like in 1981 to 85, particularly 1981 to 82, 83, you know, where the Rujemas, the Magaras, and all these other people got involved, you know, in this thing with Museveni and on the other plan. The majority of the ordinary Banyarwanda people were absolutely innocent. You know, they had no clue about what was happening. Of course, there are many of them enlisted in this thing. The Banyarwanda who were unleashed from refugee camps, they were innocent. The Banyarwanda who had been early as part of the 1969, 59, the genocide in Rwanda, and so therefore the influx into Uganda at the time, when the then British colonial government didn't want the Banyarwanda in Uganda or to come in as the colonial state. Milton Obote, as then leader of the opposition, meaning the African voice, in 1959 said, no, these are African brothers, this is our country, they will come into this place. Wow. So from 1959, 59, 60, and the early 60s, Banyarwanda came into Uganda and they accommodated, because we're saying, we cannot say we're an independent African country, there's conflict in Rwanda. So we took a position on Rwanda, the same position we took on Congo, hence supporting the Lumumba's forces, and the same position we took on South Africa, you know, and other African nation states. Yeah. So this sort of is what I'm trying to bring out. As African peoples, we cannot think shoddy shadow when it's convenient for me in Namutumba, and when it's convenient for me somewhere in Bujiri, and when it's convenient for me and somewhere in Chinoni, apply a different set of rules. So these things somewhere we need to deal with as a topic. But for the moment, just simply know it's politics being played by the powers that may be, but unfortunately the African blood and the African lives that are suffer. It's also true that majority average Ugandans, some of whom, because I also know these things happen out there, some of us pretend, yes, there is genuinely a negative connotation by average Ugandan citizens about the Banyarwanda, partly linked to some of those things of the early 80s, and partly a sense of resentment built, and these are things that are basically politically built. But as people, and for me, as a leader of a diverse political organization, a political party, and a Pan-Africanist political party, and a global citizen of a progressive global socialist movement, where I would rather have, say, Jeremy Corbyn being the president of Uganda, a white Muzungu, than Museveni and his bunch. You know, I'd rather have Bernie Saunders being a president of this country than Museveni is his bunch. I am very clear that the question of African personality, when we talk about humanity and humanity of the peoples, yes, you know, we shouldn't use human beings as human shields.
Lastly, as we finish that issue, is also the rising question of the Ethiopians in the country today.
Isn't it a contradiction? That's interesting. The question of the Ethiopians and the Eritreans, good you raise it, you know, isn't it a contradiction? You'll be told, actually, this is another important point, that actually some of the specialist privilege that Ethiopians and particularly Ethiopians and Eritreans are having in this country, you can't compare it to the experience of Banyarwanda. are experiencing in this country. So maybe we need to have another topic, another conversation about. I've always said that we need to have the national questions and the identity question in this Uganda. The Uganda question, we need to have to discuss it, which then brings us to have a conversation about the question of Buganda versus the other parts of Uganda and many of some of these historical things. But it's important that the identity question in Uganda be discussed, including also part of the things that some people now think that there's some Asians who can come into Uganda and be given land, special land, for free by Mr. Museveni. And then average Ugandan kids in the streets of Namamve are walking, crudely dying.
Let me ask you, because it will be a disservice, the question of the Ethiopians and Eritreans that are rising, especially in Kampala and metropolitan areas, which has brought a bit of dissatisfaction to some Ugandans, people leaving their houses saying that rent is only paid by the Ethiopians, the ones who can afford, landlords also increasing, and things like the controversy, if you can hear it brewing, especially among the populace.
My organization, we decided that we shall do research on conflicts, but also what causes conflicts. Now, in the whole world, there are two major issues that cause conflicts: ethnicity and religion. Yes. So most conflicts are sectarian in nature. People feel uncomfortable relating with the others, and then it manifests into a war. You've seen in eastern DRC, the M23 versus the Congolese government. Now, it is true that we have quite a number of foreigners from the Horn of Africa. You remember that they also faced a serious intertribal war just recently.
2021?
Yes.
Between the Tigris and the Ethiopian mainstream.
And then later on between the other two groups. Okay. So some of them have been, of course, coming into other countries as they wait for their asylum to be processed in the Western countries. That's why you have quite a number of them in the city. But of course, the indigenous Ugandans feel that maybe their opportunities are being taken by these people. However, we should understand that these people have faced very ruthless conflicts in their countries, and we need to accommodate them until they are resettled by the UN. You know, it takes quite some years. I know quite a number of people who have spent 10 years. The asylum is still being processed. They give them excuses. Some have even had families.
That's what I'm saying. Now they are settling, and that's how communities grow.
But eventually, they take them because they have to first identify for you a suitable country.
Okay, Charles.
Yes.
Charles, if you don't mind, I'll just interrupt very briefly. No, actually, I'm a refugee scholar. I'm a forced migration scholar. There's conflict in Rwanda, and there's conflict in Rwanda. You know, then we've got Banyarwanda in Uganda, most of whom came here as a result of conflict.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
You know, so we are discussing their plight after several years.
After a few years.
All of a sudden, he raised an important question about the Ethiopians and Eritreans. I was sure about that. In any case, the time when the West was backing Ethiopian Malays and Zenawi and Museveni and Kagame, praising them as a new breed of African leaders, as Africa was burning under those four men, you know, some of us were watching and some of us were the refugees of elsewhere, kind of stuff. So we understand these things. So in other words, also, in a way, it's a contradiction, the irony that chickens have come to roost. To me, what is it telling us? It's telling us that actually, as we talk about root cause of conflicts, beyond religion, actually the other is actually politics and governance things, you know, which generally has been the cause of this. So at the further extent of this is failure of people who backed these four men, you know, basically the West, back these 4 men. These things have backfired. So back conflict in Ethiopia, back conflict in Eritrea, conflict in Uganda, and conflict in Rwanda. And one of these days I'll ask the likes of the Clintons and other younger ones like the Madeleine Albrights and then the British foreign officers and ministers those days who thought these were the glories of Africa, what they did.
Okay.
Maybe, I'm sorry. As we are discussing these things, I'm saying we need to wake up as Africans and begin to discuss root causes of conflicts and make sure that these things don't turn around.
Okay.
Because as you said, if Eritreans are in this country as refugees, you know, and so Somalis and Eritreans, okay, let's use Eritrea and Ethiopia. If they're here as refugees, you know, he doesn't know, and he's a journalist. And these guys are just down the outskirts of town, predominantly here in Muyenga. You know, and people are seeing these things. So citizens don't know. So really, from a communications perspective, why doesn't government make it known that most of these people are refugees? We're holding centers for them, and they're on transit elsewhere. You know, he's talking about them buying land, buying houses. You know, so if these guys have got right to buy land, what about a settlement in Rwanda?
Because of time,
I know there is quite animosity towards those people because when they come into an area, for instance, the prices for accommodation shoot up. If a house is rented at, let's say, 400,000, it will go double, maybe 800. Exactly. And these people pay like for a year.
And,
so
they've got very organized business skills. Yes. No, but I don't want to go down there. But no, there is an underlying thing that I want to say. There's word going on around town that some of these people are getting special treatment from either the state or people within government. And that's the only reason why I brought it up.
Let's stop here. Charles, I want to hear from you on the 36 gentlemen that were remanded and the people who were in that particular training in Kisumu. They have been charged with treason. And then what do you think about this entire scenario? They entered Kenya, checked through immigration very well, got the stamps and were allowed to enter Kisumu. After entering Kisumu, the Kenyan police got them, brought them back to Uganda without actually passing them through the immigration up to here. Now they have been arraigned in court today, charged with treason. What do you think about that particular activity?
Actually, me, when I saw the story, I was taken aback because we've had a number of political actors, especially from the opposition, go to Kenya, conduct activities and come back freely. Yes. I think BSJ has been there and some people.
He was, I think, with Chagulanyi, with
yes, even
the
Chagulanyi,
NUP guys. They went there for the torture thing, I think. Showing
and we've really had a history. You remember Honorable Winnie Byanyima? You remember when she went to Kenya and made quite an alarmist statement? I think it was on TV Kenya, some TV there. She said Museveni was training some rebels in Imbara to attack Rwanda. But she was never even arrested from there. So I don't know whether the environment is changing under President Ruto, or might be because of the recent agreements that have been signed.
You have always said that Ruto and Museveni are...
Yes, but also you cannot ignore the recent agreements that were signed. Quite a number of agreements that Museveni signed with Ruto.
Bilateral agreements, yes.
And maybe some understanding was made that should such a thing happen, then bring back my people. You've seen in Tanzania, President Samia, when Congolese rebels, there's a Congolese rebel who was, I think, transiting through Tanzania. He was arrested and handed over to the RSC authorities. So, but at times it is understandable. Some people take focus on economic benefits between the two countries, and they would not want those benefits to affect their relationship. under security. Now, the Katonga group that was arrested and charged with treason, terrorism.
Terrorism, like going for terrorism trainings.
We don't have sufficient information regarding that. Just like you know that President Museveni has been saying consistently that there are actors here being sponsored by foreigners.
You have heard
that they have become foreign agents.
Yes.
So maybe the president is being paranoid, or maybe is not getting good information. But I'm hoping that really enough should be done in the investigations.
But
so
treason
that,
is a very big charge.
So that you really don't persecute somebody for a legitimate cause. Politics is legitimate. There's no reason why you should persecute somebody.
Okay.
Yeah, so my appeal would be that there should be enough information that is credible and not just politicking, because you put somebody's life in harm's risk.
Okay. Thank you so much, Charles Kazooba. We go for a short commercial break. When we come back, I'll start with Joseph Ochieno on that particular issue, and we shall also enter the anti-corruption activities that are going on in the country, but also how NRM has actually addressed these particular activities. Is this something that we can commend them for? What are the wins for President Museveni? What are the wins for the protesters? And of course, what is the roadmap as we continue to see how these things unfold in the country? My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga. This is the Hotline Show.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi, Rogers. Can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes, it can. Although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital.
At first, we hit your gadgets with our state-of-the-art digitalized mobile studio with the debate on the road behind the wheels. Later, we launched our magnificent studios located on Plot 1A, Sewagude Close, Lukulinanganda, Machindye, Kampala, where we bring to you our must-watch shows like The Mighty Drive, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m., Hotline, Mondays, 7 p.m. As for legal matters, Twins at Bar, Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Wednesdays, 6 p.m. is Afro-Caribbean Link, where we connect Africa with the Caribbean. Voltage on Thursdays, 7 p.m., featuring a youthful panel. Interface with Dr. Kiza Besige every Friday, 12 p.m. with his call to action against injustices. Snap Talk, Saturdays, 6 p.m. with the trio. A must-watch, The Political Dice, Sundays, 8 p.m. with the duo that never stammers, and so much more. Watch us live on all our social media platforms. We are The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. You are still watching Digitalk TV. This is our second and final hour of the show. My name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga. I'm still with Joseph Ochieno from Uganda People's Congress and Charles Kazooba, the Executive Director from the Center for African Affairs and Diplomatic Studies. As we entered the break, we were talking about the issue of the 36 FDC comrades or members who are actually based in the Katonga faction. They were actually arrested and charged with treason today. And they were remanded to prison up to the 14th of August 2024. This is a very big charge, and we're asking ourselves, how do we, or what do we think about this particular activity? Is it true that some of these people were taking part in terrorism activities and training, and is it okay for them to be charged with treason? Or is this actually another political stance or move from some of the people in the realm? Sir, what do you think about the activities of those young people who were arrested and charged in court today?
I generally don't know much details, but I find it quite surprising that FDC members would find themselves in Kisumu. Kisumu is a very progressive county in Kenya and is under an extremely progressive governor, Professor Nyang' Nyong'o, whom, if we are to consider part of what Charles is saying, where then you bring in Ruto and Museveni, I'm not quite sure whether a Kisumu administration would sort of allow such a kind of game to play. Nyang' Nyong'o is big enough actually to stand up to Ruto. But that said, they're government. But also that said, it's a possibility that maybe these guys had gone to train or to meet and for conferencing that may not necessarily have involved the highest office in the county. And it does not necessarily have to be. Kenya is our neighbor. You know, Kisumu is nearer than Kampala. I should be going to Kisumu for breakfast from Nagongera, and I've ever gone to equivalent of a lunch meeting, you know, to Kisumu, you know, and we should be doing that if you link it to part of the conversation we're trying to talk about the African identity. That 60 years after independence, you know, you have to negotiate a trip between Kabale and the other end of Katuna in Rwanda. That you should be, you know, a citizen of Bujiri and you know, have a big issue going for lunch with a friend in Webuye, the other end of Kenya. It shouldn't really be in this day and age, and so therefore, is it the case that FDC colleagues had gone to Kenya to do training around campaigns, fundraising, or maybe because there have been these recent developments in Kenya, FDC members may have gone, I don't know, to learn how to do these things, which would be democratically legitimate anyway, and maybe Ruto felt that these people were learning from his friends and possibly beefing up you know, anti-Ruto thing. Maybe that's one of the reasons why he contracted his supervisor of the region, Museveni, for bad manners, and say, you know, these guys are here, let's do it.
Thank you so
I really hope not.
Yeah.
But it's a shame. But you're right that being charged with terrorism offenses, I'd be very interested to know eventually what the evidence for those terrorism offenses are. I think in this day and age, surely that option would be much more scary. And I think if these guys were to be involved in matters of terrorism equivalent, I think, I'm not sure they would be going to Kisumu with their handbags like that. I'm not a security expert, but I'm not quite sure whether it would be something along those lines.
Right.
But maybe that's despair from Nairobi as much as despair from these corrupt thieving lords of Kampala.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's start on the issue of the protests. They went down last week, starting on Tuesday. We also had a few protests on Thursday. Over 100 people were actually arrested by Uganda Police Force. And many of these have been actually arraigned in court. Some will be arraigned in court tomorrow. I think the likes of Pfizer Fabs, a journalist by profession, they will be arraigned in court tomorrow. Now, the question that we want to touch base on, or what are the results of the first time or the first week of protests? Remember, the protests will be beginning again on the 31st, that is on Wednesday, as Ugandans say they are not going to be giving up. The uniqueness about these protests is that you've not seen a lot of political figures. You have seen Ugandans, normal Ugandans, young people coming out to actually talk about this particular issue, and they've done a lot of activities therein, as you can see.
Are you saying we politicians are not Ugandans?
You are, but you have an agenda when you are coming to this
I am
thing.
offended.
But I'm going to start with you, Charles Kazooba. Charles, what do you think of the first week of the protests?
First of all, I wish to commend those that were able to participate in the protests.
Yes, sir.
Because any activity geared towards the elimination of thuggery in government is most welcome. I don't agree with President Museveni that he should be the one to permit people who want to express their displeasure.
Did he say he's the one?
Yes. He even directed that they should go to Nakalema.
Talk nicely to him, and they'll show him. They show them a cushion route, a red carpet route for protest.
March on Sunday. This can't be just a normal march. Ugandans are very angry, especially the young people are so angry. We are very bitter. Everything is being destroyed because of thuggery. People are stealing left, right, and center with impunity. But they will pay. Let them not take this matter lightly. They will pay. President Museveni will not be around to protect them. Each one of them is going to pay. Whether in 3 years, whether 4 years, they will pay seriously. President Museveni will not be around to protect them. Good enough, this technology is helping each and every Ugandan to document these cases. You know, don't think, I saw somebody was saying that, this one flopped. Oh, they should.
Many say these protests flopped.
They shouldn't be deceived. People are just quiet, but they are so bitter. Now,
what they have proved to you that they actually Uganda is moving on okay?
That's what you think. But those of us who talk to ordinary people, we know what the feeling is down there. I see the protest as a success. Otherwise, why would the speaker even suspend parliament if things were normal?
In a cowardice move.
Why would the entire security infrastructure be deployed on the streets of Kampala?
The subversive activities. that you mentioned
So
here.
the protest, so far, so good. People are becoming angry, but not enough. Like I told you the other time that the word corruption does not trigger anger. 2, people think money being stolen is somebody else's money. But we want to come to a stage where that anger people use for mob justice is the anger they should mete out against people who steal public resources. Now, how do you raise that anger? It means that Ugandans should continuously be educated by those who understand this issue so well. Because without the rest of the Ugandans and appreciating that actually part of the solution is elimination, actually eliminating corruption is the core issue. Anybody that associates with theft of public resources or even associating with thieves, that person is an enemy to this country.
So President Museveni is an enemy?
He is an enemy to Ugandans. Anybody who associates with thieves or thuggery is an enemy of Uganda. It is as simple as that. Because we cannot allow people die over issues that could be catered for by government.
Charles, did you protest?
I did not protest.
Do you want to share why?
No, I had a commitment. I told you I started my research on Saturday. So much of my paperwork, designing questionnaires, writing letters, every area I go to, we have to have letters from RDC, DPC up to chairman. So that whole time I was preparing my paperwork. Unfortunately, I did not go.
There is still another protest happening on
Yes,
Wednesday.
we shall go. And me, it is not even...
But many Ugandans are saying you,
We
the
should not-
older breed has also not really tried to take part in these activities.
Even here, when we come and talk,
That's correct. So
it is something big. Let me tell you, last week, somebody called me. Somebody called me and said, you guys are doing a great job. Because some of these issues cannot be understood by the young people if you don't explain them thoroughly.
Yes, sir.
You understand? But there's something I wanted to say.
Yes, please. Sir.
These people were calling for resignation of the speaker. I don't think that should be the issue. The issue is prosecution of the leadership of parliament and the recovery of lost monies. We should not take this matter lightly. That she resigns. What if she resigns and she has eaten our money?
So you want to
So how
recover
do we gain? Even other people will just resign, and then we call it a day. People should go to Ruzira in handcuffs, just like we saw Sally, the
Permanent
former
secretary.
PS of Ministry of Trade. Yes, we've seen members of parliament go to Ruzira. We also need the leaders of parliament put on handcuffs, straight to Ruzira. But in addition, we need lost monies recovered. So if it means selling off their properties, let them be sold off.
Okay, Sasa, I'm going to bring you, because many people are saying this is more of an issue of getting the smaller fish, even if you're going for parliament. And many are saying that the parliament you're even talking about does not even consume 1 trillion shillings generally. And aren't we looking at the wrong people as well? But you will answer that later. Let me come to you. Mr.
No,
Ochieno.
first wait before you go to Ochieno. Are you aware that Parliament is in charge of our budget?
Budget allocation.
Haven't you heard a rumor that almost half of that budget is stolen?
You have said that here.
Yes, I've said it.
The IGG said 10 trillion. For you are
That-
saying
that-
half.
Yes, almost half.
Because half you mean like
Money,
35 or
now let me
40
tell you
trillion.
what these people do, the trick they use. They budget for items, yes, like for a road. Then they put the money in the budget. They go to Parliament, negotiate with the members of Parliament. They pass
the budget.
They approve that money is for that item. Money is taken away. The following financial year, you will see that same item in the budget.
Thank you so much. Surprising.
These guys are thugs. Eh?
Sir, what do you think about the anti-corruption protests for last week?
You're a young man. Why are you laughing instead of wanting to cry?
Crying is a sentiment.
He's just told, it's not a sentiment, that's serious. The extent of criminality by this regime in the name of corruption, as discussed, is extraordinary. It's historical. We hope that it ends with Museveni's regime, that never again in this country are we able to experience a regime that is able to preside over this kind of national robbery. It's unfortunate that we are discussing this without my good friend, Comrade Awich, who's a member of the NRA, Rover Center Executive. I know.
By the way you use the word good friend, many of them think you're enemies because if people are from different political inclinations, they should be enemies. But I like how you use the word friend.
I'm well groomed, well taught by Milton Obote, the father of this country, that was the Musevenis like to hate. He told the Samugari, he told the Cecile Ogwal as way back as 1990, 92, 91, 90, that those of them who were then in Uganda House remaining here should never treat DP as their enemies. And yet DP was in bed with the NRA, and DP was responsible with the NRA and some religious establishment in overthrowing a government with the Musevenis in 85. Yes. And he was saying, these are our political opponents, but in fact, they will be our partners in the success of reclaiming our country. That's sort of the thing. But in any case, politically, whatever the case, whatever political party, and talking, as Charles says, on these platforms, it's our responsibility that not in my name, or not in our names, should we see politics as a battle, as a war. It's not a matter of life and death. Yes. It's basically differences of opinion, differences of values, and differences of approach in terms of wanting to achieve our core objects. And that's why politics should not be violent too. But I was saying that, so Comrade Awich is away. I know that maybe, he may possibly be involved in the burial of one of their NRA friends, a leper who passed on, and may his soul rest in eternal peace. What I want to say is that I met a leper somewhere outside Kampala. He recognized me at a particular corner in a restaurant. He came to say hello to me. I think I was quite grateful. We had a very decent conversation. That's a comradeship. In fact, the kind of thing that we're trying to emphasize. It should be that. And I commend him, and I commend people in NRA who have a way of understanding and appreciating that we may have political differences, but that this is our country. Yes. And so he did so. So I'm sad that he passed on, and particularly as a young man. I'm also very sad that he passed on in a road accident. I have lost very close family members in road accidents. And in future, these are things that we need to be able to discuss. Maybe a future UPC government, one of the things we could do is to make sure that we invest sufficiently in infrastructure so that road networks are much more safer, efficient and safer, but also possibly that maybe in future people like you can come to Tororo traveling by a fast train rather than driving on your own. Because one of the things about these things is that some of these guys get very tired, very exhausted, drive alone, and then get disoriented. I do drive alone sometimes, and so these are serious issues as a by the by. But back to this. I think I agree with Charles generally that this is a national crisis and should not be seen as a matter of merely of corruption. We need to waken up the majority of Ugandans to recognize, to come to know that when we talk corruption, we talk about national theft, and we talk about corruption, we talk about criminality, but also that when we talk about corruption, the responsibility, where I differ slightly bit, is not with Anita Mongi. And I would want to suggest to our young friends, particularly who are leading this campaign, that the slogan should not be about Anita must resign. I think the slogan should be corruption must end, yeah? We want our money back, sort of like Charles says, and people must pay. So you go to Luzira, come back, and we claim back your properties and everything else, and we return them to the national coffers. So that's one. But number two, I find it actually also very interesting that this campaign seems to focus around Amongi. Amongi is basically a manifestation of the bigger thing. This corruption does not end in the National Assembly. Charles is right. The National Assembly is responsible for the appropriations of a national budget. But we know that the supervisor of the National Assembly is the executive. And so this thing must come from the top. So this thing must come from the top and must be led by the top, and the top must take responsibility. And so therefore, Mr. Museveni must take responsibility for the theft of our national resources. Number one. Number two, or number three. Number three, it has also been said very commonly, we know the massive amount of loss of money, public funds, in the president's office. We want those monies. But also, one of the things that these young people should campaign for is that we must end the politics of envelopes. Mr. Museveni, as President of the Republic of Uganda, should learn some lessons, should come to me for tea. I'll give him free advice. I can show him a bit of clips of old Milton about it.
He's the master right now of governance.
So a President of the Republic, why are you holding an envelope for money? Why are you holding a sack of money as if you're still in the bush?
Donations.
Donations for what? For who?
He actually has donations in his budget.
Precisely.
I think even the speaker has
I'm coming there because those must end. Young guys take this. Those must end. A future UPC government would end that once. And you know what? 12 months later, services would have gone upwards. Do you get it? Because donations are patronizing. Citizens of this country do not want handouts. Our people in hardened places, whether it's Abimu or Moroto or parts of Bulisa, people want hose. People want seed supplies. In the dry ends of states where people want irrigation, people want water. In particular places of Buganda, people want to make sure that they've got access to transportation.
So the issue is service-led.
Services are what citizens of this country want, and they are focusing on the economic aspect. The other element, which is extremely urgent, are the broader social services. Yesterday, I got in the morning a young teacher in distress, telling me that her child had malaria. She'd been treating him from the previous day, and now she had only 30,000. She was looking for 30,000 Uganda shillings. The woman was in distress for 40,000 shillings. Granted, one of the few occasions when I had some 40,000. For us, UPCs, we don't steal, so we don't have much with money. You see what I'm saying? So I sent her the money that I had, in fact, to cover for her and her son. Can you imagine, Charles, that an average Ugandan citizen, in your case, you're a young man, I've always been saying,
yes.
In the next few years, you possibly a parent, I don't know, but in the next few years, you're a parent. Your child catches malaria, and you live somewhere, a particular corner of Machinde, you cannot walk across to go to a local health facility to be treated for malaria. Because of some other complications, we're carrying out investigation, big machines. Malaria treatment,
basic.
You cannot walk to a local health facility to be treated for malaria, which has already been established. Do you know what? Under this Mr. Museveni's regime, one of the people serving his regime is Jim Muhezi.
Yes.
Jim Muhezi, stole our money. Money descended for HIV, AIDS, and malaria. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Bits of that, they went to Luzira. I don't know how much of that money has been recovered from him. Do you know the guy is now back in government looting together with the Musevenis? Do you get what I'm saying? Those are the things we need to end. Those are the things we need to end. So really, as we're saying to Charles, that, you know, I don't know that this young lady here understood that while she was struggling with her child, maybe she had already spent 100,000 because the servant was the money she needed that morning from the previous day, you know, that she was struggling as a teacher, professional teacher, young professional teacher in this country, struggling for 100,000 Uganda shillings. But we're talking about some of these funny guys, billions of Uganda shillings owning. In others, their money that should go for malaria, their money that should be going for basic things like TB, their money is in those cases that should have really covered facilities for people living with HIV and AIDS. People died. I have told programs that corruption kills. Yeah. And has killed this country again and again and again. Because linked to it is poverty. Linked to it is some of these road accidents. And linked to them, there is a road down in the other end of Chira. I passed by.
Actually, let me give you information. Some of these people, even in government, don't appreciate some of these conversations. But I would like to point out, investigations have shown that actually terrorism is oiled by corruption.
Precisely.
Do you know that Al-Shabaab operatives crossed from Somalia to Kenya and East Africa, helped by police officers, corrupt police officers? So corruption kills. That is a fact. And some of us have said that corruption, if we are to rank it, it is at the same ranking with terrorism.
That's correct. So, if you look at it from that perspective, it's that very serious. So, Mr. Museveni's office, I think we talked about this program, that you want to stop allegedly to tackle corruption in Uganda Revenue Authority, our national port, and you appoint a thief, and you're Mr. Museveni. And the youth of Kampala are asking for Anita to merely just resign and go back to Bukede. She's going back to Bukede into her palace, you know. Yes. So that's unfortunate. But finally, I listed this, and I don't know whether I listed in this program, that the first corruption was in 1987, the currency conversion.
Yes, you've
nobody's talked about it.
Monday.
Then you go through systematically, you line through. Those really are the issues. And I suggest those are the things that we need to focus on them. Some of them may have been bygones, but I think Charles raised an important point. That's actually wrong. That somebody who's told Choga money is boasting in this, and some of them are very arrogant, because I know some of them. You know some of them, you know. They're very arrogant. And when their children meet some of you guys in the corners of Kamoche, they're saying, what are you wasting? You cleared the way for us, man. You know what I'm trying to say?
Maybe my question is, President Museveni says these protests that you're talking about are actually funded by some foreign agents. What do you think?
That's very cheeky, Mr. Museveni. Very cheeky. Do you know the expert in receiving foreign funds to destroy Museveni is Mr. Museveni?
You have said that.
The number one expert in receiving dubious foreign money to destabilize Uganda is Mr. Museveni. He got it from Libya. He got it from Tiny Rolands, the Anglo-Americans. You know, can I go on? He got it quite a lot, Mr. Museveni. He got it from some other neighboring countries I don't want to mention this time for diplomatic purposes to balance. This is what I'm saying. Mr. Museveni got dubious foreign money, and dubious foreign money, number one. Number two, even the genuine foreign money that they send to us as grants and aid to help our young people, they steal it under the watch of Mr. Museveni. But finally, look at the Mabate thing. Mr. Museveni continues in his cabinet seat, sitting with at least 22 thieves, people who've stolen from the poorest of the poor. But final thing I want to conclude on this, on this phase of it, is I see my beautiful sister Anita talking corruption the other day and say, oh yeah, we leave parliament and talk to local government. It is true. There is corruption in local government. There is corruption at the heart of this and everything, that it can only go with Mr. Museveni when Mr. Museveni retires. We know that. But at least, Museveni cannot end it. But the point is, we just need to try and make sure we check them. This demonstration and everything else, we are only going to check Mr. Museveni's corruption. But ending corruption under NRA is, some kind of praying for Mr. Jesus to reside, to come home back here before his time. So it will not end. For the moment, we can just make sure that we check it. It will not. But look, on the question of Anita, my sister Anita, and she's a fantastic lady, by the Anita Mong, and local government, it's true. These things are happening. One of the things I understand, and which I must say on record, is that because I told you that from around the last 3 years, when I started visiting in district headquarters, I started getting much more concerned. I campaigned, and I've told the NRM ministers about this, that we need to review pay. While we're looking at the pay of our legislators, we should also be looking at pays for district council chairpersons, that they're paid substantially unfairly little money. Part of what now it seems to be is that many of these chairpersons push their hands in the till. Most of them are predominant NR, of course.
Let me give you information. There is also a syndicate. People in the Ministry of Finance send money that you've not asked for at the district level.
Yes. yes.
Then they ask you to resend it. You send it back to the ministry, and that money is grabbed and eaten.
Yeah.
These things, I'm very sure the president.
You talk about the underutilized resources?
No, budget. Budget.
No, I'm thinking this money that stays and then
money that goes to local governments is siphoned by people within the Ministry of Finance.
So it's quite a lot of that. So then at some of the
local... Now, for me, what I thought about his submission was that when money is sent to local government, maybe sometimes unused, it is sent back to the national coffers, which is the policy.
These guys are terrible.
Wow.
It's more than that. More than that. So Charles is absolutely right. But then to link to that, so some of the chairpersons genuinely are substantially underpaid. And if we level them out to the equivalent of members of parliament, part of the future reviews should also be making sure that we should review their remunerations. Okay. But that said, is insufficient grounds for many of them to push their hands in the till. I have known cases, and some of these things I'm still considering to investigate, and I'll have a serious conversation with my beautiful sister in-law, Mulamo Betty Kamia, that some district chairpersons put pressure on civil local governments, meaning public servants at local government levels, to play around with the money. And of course, not many of these people, because these are their political bosses, find themselves under a very difficult position not to spend some of those monies. And finally, I'm saying this for a reason. Yes, there are also cases where now the district accounting officers, like the chief administrative officers, some of them not only get involved, but part of that, the deployment of these things, people are also corrupted. Well, I'm saying this because national services are not more important anywhere. The most important place for the public services is at local government level. So therefore, really, the disbursement of services to our people comes from the districts. Okay. That for those of us at the top, we should be able just to manage and administer departments, but really those are where these things should happen. And if those places have got challenges, when some districts, you get a chief administrative officer, 3 district administrative officers in 5 years. How are they going to set and be effective in those places? So these things should be looked at and be challenged. Okay. So things are going on under the watch of these guys. So 1, there's a regime element. 2, there are political elements. But 3, maybe citizens like you, myself, and Charles, seeing these things in our respective home districts, and wherever we see, we need to stand up and be counted and make sure that these things come to a stop.
Thank you so much. We are halfway into this particular hour. There was a story of Uganda spending over 462 billion on faulty telecom monitoring systems. Have you guys heard of that particular story? It broke today. And I think in this particular telecom monitoring system, we always invest, I think, $61 million. We invested 462 for the last 5 years. Then this particular year, we renewed the contract of this particular monitoring system that is not working, that is faulty. We renewed the contract for $61 million. That's around 263 billion. So the problem looks like it's bigger than corruption itself. it looks like people are not actually even monitoring the things that are working and not seeing where even the money is going. People are just taking it.
But why are you asking us that question? Because that's what Charles told. I know Charles is going to respond. That's exactly what he told you, that this thing is more than corruption.
It's bigger than corruption now. But
It's a scandal.
What does Mr. Museveni mean when he says the protests are actually funded by some foreign agents? And you've always been someone who has been talking about that particular issue of foreign funding.
There is what they call liberal hegemony. Liberal hegemony,
yes, sir.
In simple terms, the West exports democracy to other countries, but that democracy is tied to human rights, natural rights of an individual.
Yes.
Now, the West believes that all human beings are equal at individual level. So they make sure that they export this democracy and human rights to each and every country, and where in those countries are authoritarian regimes, they are undermined or removed. If in your country there is a government that, for instance, does not respect and protect the rights of an individual, the West will set in motion programs that remove your government or undermine your government to check you to reform. The intention is that if all other countries in the world respect human rights of individuals and they can regularly change governments free and fairly, then there will be free trade world over, and countries will not be able to fight each other, because the agitation, the question of agitation for leadership is sorted out at the national level. So for President Museveni to say that there are people who are being funded by foreigners, I mean, this is automatic. President Museveni is a philosopher himself, yes, and he understands these things. That the moment he is seen to be authoritarian, his government is seen to be authoritarian, the West will either remove him or undermine him. And there will be programs to do that. So we don't have to pretend about it.
But he's saying it's wrong. Even if you have normalized it and it's done, but it's wrong.
The day he accepted liberalism in Uganda is the day he accepted the consequences. There are consequences for you not to play the game in perfection. If you have allowed that you are going to have elections in your country, but then you don't want those elections to be free and fair. You don't want to protect the rights of citizens.
Yes, sir.
There are consequences. And part of those consequences are to remove you from government. By the way, recently, there was a new concept developed by the UN that should you abuse en masse the rights of your citizens, the international community will intervene and remove you, even prosecute you. So the president's argument, when I saw it, for me, I thought maybe he was trying to communicate to people who don't understand international politics. But for anybody who appreciates international politics, that is a consequence. if you do not respect and protect the rights of your citizens, if you do not accommodate democracy in your country, then the West sees you as an enemy to the international community. You are going to cause problems to the international community, to other countries. So they will set in motion programs to remove you.
So it's normal and obvious.
It's normal. They have been doing it. They have done it in Libya. They have done it in Sudan, everywhere.
Okay. Now let's move on to what now Amita Among says. If you listen to her yesterday, and she's saying she's going to serve another 5 years. There is nothing that you're going to do that is going to scare her. She's not corrupt. She's going to serve another 5 years. That's another next term.
You know, I always don't like mentioning that name. I don't know why.
You fear?
Not fearing. I just...
Because you might go to parliament next hour.
Because, you know...
Is that the reason?
You don't know, you don't understand how much trouble that woman is causing this country. She's not just stealing. She's inciting the nation. She is inciting the nation. And it's either she's doing it deliberately or doing it stupidly.
Stupid is a big word.
One of the two. Because maybe she doesn't appreciate the gravity of the situation. Or she's doing it deliberately. There's what they call reverse psychology. There are people within Museveni's government who are determined to remove him, not by way of arms, but by using reverse psychology.
That could be...
So you annoy the population, and the population removes him. That is also possible. So it is one of the...
Are you saying she's undermining the system?
For heaven's sake. you think she could be alone undermining President Museveni?
She undermining
You know
Museveni.
these things, they are playing a very funny game internally. Actually, the opposition is not outside of NRM, opposition is within NRM. That is a fact. So, there are people who are playing the game of reverse psychology. Within NRM, that you annoy the population. And in fact, when the population is not annoyed enough, they feel unhappy. Because it becomes easier. Rather than picking arms, you go to the bush to remove Museveni. Or going to opposition and you fight him. They have seen it might be
a long process.
A piece of work. Now, instead you do it within the system
itself. Oh.
So I've been looking at her conduct and those two areas. Either she's doing it stupidly or she's doing it deliberately.
Okay, because when you talk about deliberately, the speaker one time went to, I think, Ramadan's burial, the brother to Abdu Katuntu, and she buried with 100 million shillings. That's like condolence. I've never seen even the president pay that or give that much condolence. There is also another burial that the president contributed, I think, 10 million, and the speaker contributed again 100 million. The cancer run recently, the speaker donated 1 billion shillings. That's around 250,000 US dollars. It's not a small money. That's a very huge amount. But what do you think about this particular activity? And also, what Mr. Museveni said, you hinted upon it, but also this Anita Among coming out yesterday and saying, I am not going to resign, as you're saying I should resign.
You know, my Mulamu Betty Kamia, at a public event in which Mr. Museveni was present, suggested that we needed to do lifestyle audit. Mr. Museveni slapped her there and then. You've seen those clips doing their rounds. it is that day, of course I've already known from zero that Mr. Museveni is basically froth when it comes to these things. But it confirmed to me without any shadow of doubt that even the willingness to window dress it from Mr. Museveni does not exist. Mr. Museveni uses corruption as an agency for patronage to stay in power. And that is what has kept him and continues to keep him. And he will continue to do that. So what does it mean? It means, therefore, that like Charles says, anybody who does anything that maintains the semblance of a nation state and keeps you guys busy like the last 2 hours you spent here, while Mr. Museveni is okay, is fine.
Okay.
So you ask yourself, where is this money coming from and why would Mr. Museveni tolerate it? Just here, you have stories, you have sad stories of former NRA people who were wealthy enough and decided to support Kizza Besigye. How many of their businesses failed? How many average leaders and members of opposition would walk flashing in Range Rover? Range Rover is my favorite car, by the way, you know? But that after liberation we'll get. So at the moment we don't have stolen money. And even then we'll not have stolen money, but we'll have to make proper money for ourselves, you know? And then go into Range Rover. So an average Range Rover for an average leader of member of opposition doing an average business somewhere in Namambe, they will come for you. You see what I'm saying? Now, Anita Mong is a fantastic lady. She's my fellow Easterner, you know, for us from the East we're fine, you know? So she's my sister, you know? But you know what? There are pictures of Anita Mongi when she was in FDC or before. Yeah? You've seen those pictures.
I have seen.
So Anita was not particularly a very rich woman. Where did she get this money? And if it is the case that these are sudden abrupt things within the last 5-10 years, where the financial authority's intelligence? Where did this money come from and where is this money? Recently when they talked about the sanctions things, you know, why didn't some of these conversations go into you guys in the media to genuinely investigate how these monies have been obtained? Of course, we now know.
Just a minute.
Charles told you, sorry.
You have mentioned FIA, the Financial Intelligence Authority. And when you look at the dubious evidence that was shown in the parliamentary exhibition, you would see monies being wired to the accounts of bodyguards. Precisely. Of the crystal borders.
Are they in jail?
No, but how would you withdraw $1 billion?
That's what Charles and I are saying. In fact, that is actually money laundering. Because I asked in a certain bank the other week or 2 weeks ago, I was at a bank and I saw some people were withdrawing certain money in very interesting way. And particularly, I profiled, but I will not go into the details of the profile of people who withdrew huge amount of money. And I actually asked, is there any limit? You know, this person laughed a bit, and then it's the season, end of month, paying people. Meaning so that we are also so inefficient, another sign of corruption, so inefficient that we do not have to do backs payments, you know, for financial services, that people still have to go and withdraw 100 million and then begin to give cash. That's where corruption also comes, including process of accounting. You know, cash in hand business, particularly cash in hand payment, should be issues or matters of the past. In any case, these days, wherever I go to a petrol station, and by that I'm telling you petrol station owners, I insist that I reject the idea that I must pay by cash. We understand, there's a mobile money thing there, because I say there I pay double tax. You know, I want to do it via a Momo, because Momo, you would be responsible for paying the other bit for the service. They dodge, some of these people dodge. Now, some of these petrol station owners are part of the thieves who are connected to the thieves, getting billions of shillings from thieves and making huge amount of money. And then for me, I'm just going to pay my petrol for just bringing me down here, which is 60,000 shillings, and I have to go and, you know, things like that. So I can go round and round and round. You know what? These guys are turning a blind eye. That is why I'm sticking to Mr. Museveni as him and his system. So Betty, or rather Anita, are basically merely symptoms of this. So why did Mr. Museveni do that? And you know what? This is a sad conversation we're having, because the implication, as I said, of money's lost, I think you and Charles were having this conversation of the 10 trillion shillings. That's a conservative figure. Charles was trying, which you said. It's a conservative, if it's an official figure, you know it's a conservative figure.
The official figure for Charles is half the budget.
It's half the budget. And it could be, you know, there is a road, I was trying to tell, there's a road, actually, I didn't complete this. There's a road somewhere, the other end of Chira, you know, and the road was done. So the road was done, but 50 meters to the other main road is incomplete. And then I drove the other day to the other extreme end of the road going towards Kasangati. Let me say Kasangati so that people don't think Kasangati, you know, into another road down there. Also another 50 meters, the road is incomplete. And then I say, who commissions this? Who are the people who do the specifications? Who are the ones who monitor these contracts? Who then, at what stage are these contracts handed? Who signs off this contract? You know? So in a very silly way, criminal. If it is 50 meters short, that's actually a lot of money. And the other 50, does it mean that the estimates were done in such a manner this thing was left like that? Was it? Or somebody incompetent? And maybe in this case, it's possibly a Chinese contract without prejudice that the predominant was around. Is it them? Is it our people doing specifications? Or has somebody stolen some of those cement? And then they take it to their homes, you know, and then these things remain. Because ordinary citizens are not going to ask these questions. That is why I'm here. So you can go on and on and on. No, it is absolutely terrible. So these, Anita talking about her terms, to bring you back, it was extraordinary actually that she said she was going to serve her 2 terms. When I saw the headlines, I thought she was saying that she's serving only 1 term and allowing to ever to say that. And then when I learned the details, she basically means I'll serve my 2 terms. So you can see the sense of entitlement. I'll serve my 2 terms. So these guys have got the things. You know, Ugandans, you guys wake up and claim back the Republican, send these NRA guys to Luzira, and then they come out. But when they go to Luzira, make sure the big ship, the big fish are not in Luzira. Take them to Luzira, we shall take portion. And for me, I can actually visit them every Sunday with a cup of tea.
Wow, give us your parting shots, sir.
Corruption kills. Corruption is a national crisis. Corruption is a national security issue, as Charles was saying. And unfortunately, corruption will not end because NRA started it, created it, perfected it, and is using it for its sustenance. It will not end. But I think what we need to do is to, predominantly young Ugandans, to wake up and know that every bit of money that is stolen, that is eaten, is their money. Okay. And they need to begin to take responsibility, demand for those ones. Come into the streets. You did not ask me. I participated in my own way. Like this, we'll continue participating against corruption because we want to claim back our national resources for the interest of our children and children's children.
Thank you so much. I'm going to give Charles a few minutes because there is a comment addressed to you. Let Mr. Kazooba talk about the Banyarwanda question because he seems to have more knowledge about it. Secondly, why doesn't he want to discuss Bavandimwe matter? Yeah, he uses Bavandimwe matter. As you give us your parting shots, first address these questions.
Me, I'm usually a very objective person. But I also know quite a lot that happens within the state because they try to follow certain issues. And for that Bavandimwe thing, I'm one person that decided to ignore it.
You said it's funded by the state. I think
yes,
that's the aspect she wanted you to address.
Yeah, it is. That is a fact.
Okay.
It is a fact.
Why do you say that?
And I can even narrow it down that actually they pick money from the president for that thing. So if that's what that person wanted to know, that is the truth. Okay. And you don't play around with people's lives, especially the ordinary people who don't understand these politics. Somebody becomes stateless and you're just playing politics and profiteering from this person. To me, it does not make sense because tomorrow we could have another M23 here. Yes, because if people don't have where to go, they can't benefit from government services. They are not recognized as Ugandans. Do you think it would have been the first time for them to form themselves into another M23? They did it during the times of UPC.
For no good reason. Why not now?
So you think they wouldn't do it again? Now, some of us are saying there can be a solution. And a solution is there. But President Museveni has to listen. He has to understand that it is not only in his interest, it is in the interest of the entire country that these people are recognized as indigenous citizens. Yes. Okay, now, of course, this I would like to appeal to all those Banyarwanda that have had very bitter experiences to look for me, because we are going to document these experiences. Some of them have even been tortured. They have quite bitter experiences. I think maybe they will reach via the station, and then the station can reach me. Okay. But on corruption, the former Director General of Internal Security Organization, Brigadier General Ronnie Bagia, at one time, while giving a lecture at Chankwanzi, warned that corruption will be the cause of the collapse of the NRM government. After he made that statement, a few months later he was dropped. And some of us take those statements very seriously, because these are the guys that really do a lot of information gathering. So he must have been justified to reach that conclusion.
Concludes as also.
Yeah.
That's your parting shot. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the people who sent some of the comments here. Thank you so much, Honorable Ochieno, and thank you so much, Mr. Kazooba. Thank you so much, our viewer, for watching us from the time we started. You invest your time, your energy, your commitment, your money, your data into this particular show, and we are always grateful for that. We shall see you tomorrow on the Mighty Drive show starting at 8 a.m. We shall be here to talk to you and tell you what is happening in Uganda today. Don't forget that we are on all social media platforms, at TikTok, at Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all of them, X, at The Alternative Uganda, or at Digitalk TV. We are also live on YouTube, so you can find this particular video on YouTube, and you'll be able to watch it without any buffering, without any challenge. Till we meet again next Monday, my name is Edgar Mathew Karuhanga. See you very soon.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.